Hello guys and welcome to Paint or Die. My name is Kenneth and this is actually my first video with a voiceover to what I create, and this might be helpful for you newbies, which pretty much is what I am, when it comes to painting people, but with a focus on how to highlight them and shadow them. And the angle isn't specifically important in this case. The most important factor of all is where the sun comes from. So in this case, the sun will be coming from the left according to the reference photo. Now, if you take a look at the man to the left in the photo, you will see that the left side of his legs, his torso, his left arm, and the left of his head is highlighted. It is lighter than the rest of the body. The woman to his right, she's a lot darker because she have darker clothes, for one, and secondly, she's standing to the right of the man, which brings her into the shadow. So we will be focusing on the man to the right on the reference photo. As you might already have seen, I'm not a great sketcher. I'm not good at sketching people. I'm also very new at this when it comes to painting. I started painting last December, so I've been painting for about 7-8 months now. But I have been trying to learn a lot from a lot of people on YouTube, and this might be amongst the most important lesson I've had so far when it comes to painting people. It actually lies very little in the success of painting people when it comes to how detailed and good the sketch itself is. In my case, there's really nothing special about it at all. So what you will see when everything unfolds is that you get a very decent result as long as you are thorough with keeping track on where the light comes from and working with these shadows and highlights accordingly. So I'll just continue my sketching. As earlier said, I'm not a good sketcher in any way. But if you look at my other paintings, you will see the same thing, that the sketch pretty much looks like crap every time. But where it starts to get decent to good, if I might say it myself, is when the coloring comes in, and not the coloring in particular, but the shadowing. I think that the key to making decent watercolor paintings lies in two things. It's to have the right perspective and sizing of objects, and it's shadowing. So with those two, you can actually get very, very far in becoming a decent watercolor artist. I always struggle a bit when it comes to legs of people walking. If you don't get the motion right, it might look like they're crippled somehow, or it throws out what's happening in the image. But in this case, I think it's good enough to demonstrate the purpose of this video. Now it's time for the fun part, the coloring. So I've demonstrated where the sun comes from in this image, which once again makes the left side of the people highlighted, or primarily on the man to the left. So as you can see in the reference photo, I've actually highlighted the areas in yellow, in which he is a lot lighter than the other areas of the body or the clothing. So when it comes to starting out painting with that in consideration, just leave the yellow areas out totally. So you just place coloring on the other areas. So this would be mostly on the right side. You don't have to be very specific with this. I'm I messed up a bit there, so I will have to dab it up because I want that area highlighted and lighter than the rest of the body. Now, as I go on and move forward, you can see that I leave out coloring of the left part of the arm and try to keep it clean to the right side. And since clothing are folded in different ways, you don't want to draw totally straight lines everywhere because clothing is dynamic and you will have smaller and larger shadows and creasings on the clothes. And of course, if you want to do it really detailed, you can do that, but I would suggest going in a larger format than what I'm doing then, or with a smaller brush. So I will keep it pretty basic. As you already might have noticed, I have changed the color of the jacket of the gentleman to the left. He had somewhat of a brown jacket on, but I think that a blue one would pop more in this image, so I changed the color. Nevertheless, it doesn't change anything of the principles of being a highlighted area or not. Same things goes and applies for the legs, where I keep the left side of the legs uncolored while I stick my color into the right. Feet, other than legs, is another feature on people that I'm not really good at painting. I'd rather not, just leave them footless, but I will try my best to paint feet on these characters as well. So when it comes to the principle of coloring the lady to the right, she, as I stated earlier, is in somewhat of a shadow from the guy to the left, which makes her less poppy when it comes to popping with highlights to her left, because she is in the shadow area. Other than that, she have got darker clothes, which also won't highlight as much as brighter clothes. But I will continue with the same principle on her as I did with the man to the left. So starting off with her hair, if you take a look at the reference photo, you will see that some areas of her hair is very light and most of it to the right is darker. So I have a little highlight on her head, as you can see. And I will continue to paint her body. Also with the same principle, as I said, as with the guy to the left. I will go with a black, a darker color for her clothing, just to keep her as close to the reference photo as possible. I also see that she have like, I don't know what the English name for it is, but like a ribbed jacket with lines going across all of the back. I will see if I can actually pull some of the color off with a smaller dry brush, just to get a bit of the sensation of the lines going across the jacket. Yeah, it seems to be working out okay. Also, once again, if you want to be more thorough in copying your reference photo, you could add a bit darker black additionally above each and every one of the lighter stripes that goes across her back, just to get more of a 3D effect of the puffiness of the lines. But I will just keep it this way. So I will apply the same principle for her as for him. That means that I will keep the left side of the legs highlighted, which means I won't paint them. I will stick mostly to the right with coloring this lady. Now we come to the feet of the lady. If you can hear a lot of background noise, it's because 2 of my 3 kids are at home on vacation. So, and you've probably already identified that the microphone quality I have isn't very good. I promise that if I continue with these videos and get like 500 subs, that would be a milestone for me. I will get a good microphone and continue on with these kinds of videos. So if you haven't already, you feel free to subscribe and keep yourself posted with more of newbie advice from a newbie that's hopefully advancing month by month. So we're starting to get done now when it comes to the coloring, the basic coloring. And as you can see, we've left the left sides out of coloring with consideration of where the sunbeam comes from. So the next step now, other than letting this dry, is to start shadowing. So just to recap a bit, the sun is coming from the left, which means that the left sides of the bodies will be lighter. The general lighting of their bodies will be like normal, painted, and the right side of their bodies will be darker. It's easy to look at the reference photo and just see like two variations, really light or normal. But if you want to get your watercolor paintings pop, and this goes for if you paint persons or dogs or cars or pretty much whatever, if you add like 3 elements of darkness or lightness in the images on the objects, it will make them pop a heck of a lot more than if you just have 2 color variations of them. So once again, to remind you, the sun is coming from the left, illustrated as this, which means that we have the lighter colors to the left. And if you take a look at the reference photo now, you will see I've added a red field on the med. And that red field I want to darken up quite heavily. As I said before, shadows is one of the things that really makes the watercolor paintings pop off. So an opposite to having a light left side, we will focus on having a really dark right side on this man over here. So there's a lot of creasing in clothes, as I said earlier, and try to have that in consideration when you do these darker areas. Go a bit crisscross with the brush and make sure to imagine where from the sun comes and where you would naturally see the shadow areas on these characters. It becomes very naturally after you've been doing a bit of these characters where to place the shadows, but I hope that my reference photo with the yellow to demonstrate the highlights and the red to demonstrate the shadow areas helps you in visualizing that. Do I always paint with a reference photo? Well, yes, pretty much. In 90% of all my cases, I find reference photos. As I stated before, I'm not really good at drawing and sketching, so reference photos helps me a lot when it comes to getting a base to be able to paint off. So the man to the left is starting to look quite complete. I will be going back to him and do something with him later on, as well as with the lady, but that sounded wrong. So let's just continue on with the shadowing on the lady to the right. I haven't highlighted out the areas on her, mostly because I thought it was quite boring to do that. But I think the left one is good enough to help you understand what to focus on. So I'll just go ahead and keep shadowing the lady to the right, and with the same principles as the guy to the left. Keep the shadows to the right. Take in consideration creases on the clothing and such, so you get a more organic look on it. So there you have it. As you can see, the left side, which is highlighted, is now totally white. So what I like to do is just take water on the brush, and you just pretty much place water in the white areas. That makes the already painted areas to bleed over in the wet area, which actually makes the highlight area colored, but very, very lightly. Because to be frank, in the reference photo, the highlighted areas wasn't white. They were still in the color of the clothing, just very lightly. So I think this brings me a really good control of how to apply the lightest area, but still make them not white. The same applies for the head. And I will do the same for the lady to the right. We've talked about shadowing a lot now for the last couple of minutes, but one of the most important shadows of them all is, of course, the shadow cast on the ground. So we will, of course, apply that as well. That is called to grind the people. No, not grind, to ground the people. Let me just finish up. I actually applied a bit more black to her right side now, because she already had quite dark clothes on, and I think she pops more if I just add black to her right. So we are going to place the ground shadow now. That also really makes these people pop, because now it looks like they're just floating in thin air. So the shadow on the ground is one of the most important thing to be to complete this. And once again, the sun is coming from the left. That means that the shadow that will be casted on the ground goes to the right. Once again, I'm not really thorough with this. Just remember to pull the shadow from the feet, and it's really important that the shadow is in full contact with the feet, and just pull it out to the right. And of course, you could be much more thorough when it comes to this shadow than I am being here, but I think that this will be good enough. So this makes this small painting pretty much done. And there we have it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you can find elements of it that will make you a better painter. Please feel free to subscribe and like and comment if this helped you out. Have a nice day.